At 03:47 Eastern Time, a screen inside Cheyenne Mountain just lit up with something the operators have never seen outside of exercises. A Russian intercontinental ballistic missile just launched toward the United States. And from this moment, the president has 6 minutes to make a decision that cannot be taken back. 22,000 miles above the Earth, a satellite caught the unmistakable flare of a rocket motor punching through the atmosphere. Ground radar in Alaska just confirmed. The North American Aerospace Defense Command is now connecting Cheyenne Mountain to the Pentagon on a line that hasn't carried real traffic since the Cold War. 30 minutes of flight time, 6 minutes of decision time, 44 interceptors that have to work perfectly against a weapon designed to make sure they can't. And buried inside the Russian arsenal is a system that launches everything automatically, if no one's left to answer the phone. That satellite which captured the launch is part of SPEARS, the Space-Based Infrared System, a constellation of sensors watching the entire planet in infrared around the clock for exactly this kind of moment, and it just flagged a ballistic missile launch. The data lands at the Missile Warning Center, buried under 2,000 feet of solid granite inside Cheyenne Mountain Space Force Station in Colorado, behind 25-ton blast doors that seal airtight in seconds. One job: figure out whether America is under attack. Right now, the answer is looking like yes. But satellites can be wrong. Sunlight bouncing off clouds can look exactly like a missile to an infrared sensor, so confirmation comes from the ground. Massive radar arrays in Alaska, Greenland, and the UK. Picture a wall of antennas the size of a football field that scans the sky electronically instead of spinning like a dish. These radars can spot something the size of a basketball from 3,000 nautical miles, like picking out a softball from New York to London. When ground radar backs up what the satellite caught, possible launch becomes confirmed threat. Now here's where those 30 minutes start disappearing. The president doesn't get 30 of them. Detection eats a chunk. Radar confirmation eats another. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, commander picks up a secure phone and connects Cheyenne Mountain with the United States Strategic Command, or STRATCOM, and the Pentagon. More time gone. Routing the call through the Secretary of Defense to the White House burns the rest. By the time Trump is actually sitting up with the phone in his ear, that 30-minute window has been chewed down to somewhere between 6 and 12 minutes, maybe less if it's a submarine launch from the Atlantic, where total flight time drops to 15 minutes and the math gets even uglier. That's how a 30-minute flight turns into a 6-minute decision. The missile speeds up. Bureaucracy doesn't slow down. But every second that chain burns is a second the system is checking itself. Because in 1983, sunlight on clouds nearly triggered a Soviet retaliatory strike. And in 1995, a lost fax about a Norwegian weather rocket put Yeltsin's nuclear briefcase in his hands for 8 minutes over nothing. Both times, one person's gut call was the only barrier between a false alarm and the end of everything. But right now, the threat is real, and the decision lands on one man. The tool in that briefcase was built to end civilization faster than you can order a pizza. The nuclear football, officially the Presidential Emergency Satchel, follows the president everywhere. Motorcades, foreign trips, state dinners. If Trump steps onto a golf course, the aide carrying it is standing at the edge of the green. Right now, that aide has just set the briefcase on a table in front of the president. Trump opens it. 75 loose-leaf pages fan out. The Black Book. Official designation, Op Plan 8010. This is the actual nuclear war plan, and it reads less like a classified document and more like the world's most terrifying restaurant menu. President Carter found the original options so complicated he ordered them simplified. A military aide to Clinton later compared the result to a Denny's breakfast menu. Pick one from column A, two from column B. Except the columns are measured in megatons. The STRATCOM commander is already on the line. Warhead counts, estimated targets, time to impact. The president is scanning options. A limited attack option puts dozens of warheads on a narrow set of military targets. A selected attack option broadens to hundreds of warheads across an entire region. Then there's the major attack option. Declassified Nixon-era documents show what that actually means. The language doesn't say defeat the enemy's military. It says destroy the target nation as a viable society. Not its army, not its government. Its entire spot on the map. Trump makes his selection. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out the biscuit, a laminated card no bigger than a credit card, printed with authentication codes that changed at midnight. These are called gold codes. A senior officer in the war room reads the challenge phrase. Trump reads the matching response off the card. The Secretary of Defense confirms it's really him, and the order is authenticated. The whole exchange takes less than 30 seconds. The Secretary can't refuse. Verification only. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the highest-ranking military officer in the country, doesn't even get a vote. He advises, period. 2 guys and a phone call. That's the whole thing. Your local zoning board has more checks on its authority than the American nuclear command structure. But here's what most of the chain of command doesn't know. Thanks to something called pre-delegation orders, certain officers can fire nukes on their own if the president can't be reached. Who those commanders are and what triggers their authority is among the most closely guarded secrets in the country. The Secretary of Defense might not know the full list. The Vice President might not either. Washington gone, communications cut. Those commanders don't wait. They're already authorized. Officers in the war room encode the authenticated order to an emergency action message, a compressed string of encrypted characters that translates a president's decision into a language that missile silos understand, and transmit it simultaneously to every nuclear platform in the American arsenal. Missile silos across the Great Plains, submarines in the Pacific and Atlantic, bomber bases on both coasts. The message is in the air, and now everything happens at once. In Alaska, silo doors are already sliding open. 44 interceptors, the entire ground-based mid-course defense arsenal, split between Fort Greely and Vandenberg Space Force in California, punch into the sky on columns of solid rocket exhaust. Each one is a 3-stage rocket that flies into space, shreds its boosters, and releases a kinetic interceptor about the size of a refrigerator. No warhead, no explosive. The interceptor's only job is to ram the incoming warhead at a combined closing speed of 37,000 miles per hour, hitting a bullet with another bullet while both are moving over 20 times the speed of sound. If even one misses, and against a full salvo most will, there's nothing between that warhead and whatever American city it's aimed at. No backup, no second chance. The first interceptor closes on its target, and the target isn't alone anymore. Somewhere over the Arctic, the incoming Sarmat, NATO designation Satan II, shed its warheads 3 minutes ago. What was a single missile is now 15 separate objects, each on its own trajectory toward a different American city, each surrounded by decoys designed to look identical on radar. In controlled tests, the defenders know exactly when and where the missile is coming. The interceptors connect about 55% of the time. $40 billion of engineering, slightly better than a coin flip when you already know the answer. Now multiply that by 10 Sarmats launched, over 100 inbound objects, 44 interceptors, 2 per target. The minimum for reasonable odds lets you engage 22 out of 100 at 55%. You do the math. GMD was built for one scenario, a handful of missiles from North Korea. This isn't North Korea. And buried in the salvo is something the interceptor crews don't even know to look for. One of the warheads drops out of its ballistic arc and stops climbing. Instead of arcing over the North Pole like every other warhead in the salvo, it flattens its trajectory, drops into the upper atmosphere, and starts gliding. This is Russia's Avangard, a hypersonic glide vehicle that rewrites the rules of missile defense. It's surfing the edge of space at Mach 27, roughly 20,000 miles per hour, 10 times faster than a rifle bullet, and it's steering, turning, maneuvering in ways that make tracking it like trying to follow a bottle rocket with a laser pointer. The entire basis of mid-course interception is predicting where the warhead will be and putting something in its path. The Avangard doesn't follow a predictable path. No deployed American system can touch it. Pentagon press conferences make missile defense sound reassuring. Against what's coming right now, it's a locked screen door on a submarine. But while the interceptors are failing overhead, the American counterstrike is already underway. Across Montana, Wyoming, and North Dakota, siloed doors are grinding open. 60 feet below the prairie, behind blast doors, 2 officers in an underground launch control center have already verified the authentication codes from the emergency action message. Both turn their keys at the same time. The consoles are deliberately spaced so one person cannot reach both, the last physical safeguard against an unauthorized launch. 60 seconds later, the first Minuteman III clears its silo. 3 stages of solid rocket fuel accelerating 77,000 pounds of missile through the atmosphere fast enough to reach the other side of the planet in 30 minutes. Then another silo opens, then another, then dozens more. 400 intercontinental ballistic missiles accelerating towards space from silos scattered across thousands of square miles of empty farmland, spread that far apart so no single strike can wipe them all out. But land-based missiles sit in fixed locations. The coordinates of every American silo are practically public information. Some of those silos are already taking hits from the incoming Russian strike while their neighbors are still launching. A good first strike could catch many of them on the ground, which is why the most important part of the counterstrike is happening somewhere nobody can see. Deep in the Pacific, an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine is receiving the same emergency action message. 14 of these boats exist. At least 5 are deployed and completely undetectable at any given time. The boat carries 20 Trident II D5 missiles. A single Trident delivers up to 8 warheads, each splitting off to a different target. 1 submarine, 1 crew, 160 cities. The Navy has been running Ohio-class deterrent patrols since the 1980s, and not one of these boats has ever been tracked. Not once. You could fill a stadium with sonar operators from every Navy on the planet, give them 40 years and unlimited funding, and they still couldn't find one. The missile tubes open. Compressed gas ejects the first Trident from its tube. 65 tons of missiles shoved upward through a column of water. The rocket motor doesn't ignite until it breaks the surface, a deliberate safety feature so the submarine isn't sitting next to a lit rocket inside a pressurized hull. The moment the Trident clears the ocean, the first stage fires and the missile disappears into the sky so fast the spray from the launch hasn't finished falling back. Within seconds, it's on a ballistic arc towards Russia. Then the next 5 tubes. Then the next. 20 missiles from a single boat, each carrying 8 warheads. And that's just one of at least 5 submarines executing the same launch sequence right now in different oceans. At air bases across the country, B-52 Stratofortresses and B-2 Spirits are already rolling down runways. Flight crews who were standing alert in ready room 60 seconds ago now shoving throttles forward and climbing into airspace that's about to get very crowded. Bombers are the slowest piece of the triad, but the most flexible. You can recall them, redirect them, hold them in a pattern. And unlike a missile, putting bombers in the air sends a message without committing to something irreversible. Flatten the silos, the submarines still launch. Find the submarines, which you can't. The bombers are already airborne. No single attack takes out all 3. The triad was built to guarantee that an American counterstrike always gets through. It works, and that's the problem. Because the Russians built something to guarantee the same thing. Even if every Russian general, every officer, every decision maker is already gone. American warheads are now detonating across Russian territory. And deep beneath the Russian countryside, sensors are waking up. Seismic monitors register the shaking. Radiation detectors spike. Pressure gauges drop. All across the country, buried sensors feed data into a system called Perimeter. NATO gave it a different name, the Dead Hand. The system picks up the phone, not literally, but functionally. It sends automated queries down hardened communication lines to command bunkers, missile bases, senior military leadership. Anyone still there? Is anyone in charge? The queries go out. Nothing comes back. The system waits a preset window. Exactly how long is classified. Then the clock runs out and nobody has responded. The Dead Hand makes a decision no human authorized. It launches command missiles, not warheads, radio transmitters on rockets. These missiles arc across Russian airspace, broadcasting authenticated launch codes on open military frequencies. Every ICBM silo that picks up the signal fires automatically. Mobile launchers fire. Submarines fire. The entire surviving Russian arsenal empties itself. No human decision. No authorization. No one left to make one. The machine asked if civilization still existed. No one answered, so it ended what was left. You can't win by taking out Russian leadership. That's precisely the condition that makes everything launch. Russian officials confirmed as recently as 2018 that the system is still active. The Pentagon has known since the 1980s, which raises a very important question. How do you guarantee your own counterstrike when even winning triggers the enemy's automatic response? The moment the threat assessment conference began, a klaxon sounded at an airfield on the East Coast. An E-6B Mercury crew sprinted across the tarmac. They've drilled this run 1,000 times, but today, the codes in the alert message are real. The E-6B doesn't look like much from the outside. A modified Boeing 707, an airframe from the 1950s. The military flies 16 of them out of Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, with alert crews on both coasts. Call sign, TACAMO. Take charge and move out. Sounds like something a drill sergeant yells at recruits. It's actually the last 3 words of American civilization's insurance policy. 4-engine spool on a 60-year-old airframe. An aircraft older than most of the people it's trying to save. Rolling before the ground crew clears the taxiway. No waiting for clearance, no standard departure procedure. Wheels up, climbing through 10,000 feet. Inside the cabin, an operator begins feeding copper wire off a spool the size of a washing machine. 26,000 feet of antenna, nearly 5 miles, unreeling into the sky behind the aircraft while the pilot banks into a continuous turn to keep the wire as straight as possible. What that wire transmits on very low-frequency radio, VLF, one of the few signals on Earth that can push through hundreds of feet of seawater and reach a submarine at depth. 5 miles of copper wire dangling behind a Cold War-era airframe. That's how you talk to a submarine when the rest of the world has gone quiet. Before the E-6B, this mission belonged to the EC-135 Looking Glass, an airborne command post that stayed aloft 24 hours a day, 365 days a year from February 3, 1961 to July 24, 1990. 29 and a half years without a single day off. An aircraft, airborne every minute of every day for almost 30 years, because a gap between flights was a gap the Soviets could exploit. That era ended in 1991. Today, the E-6B launches from ground alert, crews ready around the clock, but sitting on the tarmac until the klaxon sounds. Which means today, the TACAMO crew has to scramble, climb, deploy 5 miles of antenna, and reach those submarines before the first warheads detonate. The same clock that started with a satellite detection is ticking for them too. And if the E-6Bs had been hit on the ground, if TACAMO never got airborne and the signal never went out, the submarines wouldn't have waited. Every Ohio-class crew trains for the scenario where the signal simply stops, where the scheduled broadcast window opens and nothing comes through. They have a procedure for that. Which means right now, not in this scenario, right now, today, someone beneath the Atlantic, an Ohio-class submarine is cruising at depth, listening for a signal on a frequency most people don't even know exists. For a silence that means it's time. Bye for now.